see how she goes. But so look, welcome everybody, and thank you so very much for joining us this morning because it certainly would have been a bit lonely without you. All right. And today's webinar, as it says there, break through the hidden limits to your business growth. And this is a program or a body of work we're going to be presenting to you today, as you know, based on the positive intelligence framework created by Shazad Shameem. And one of the things I'm sure all of you know, both from your ventures into business, is that when we launch a business and we set out to grow and develop it, that it's inevitable that we're going to face challenges, and challenges from outside ourselves in the environment, from the context we're operating in, but also challenges that I'm sure you've faced from inside ourselves. Welcome, Lynette. Well done. Also challenges from inside ourselves, right? That little voice in our heads that can often get going and, not always be our greatest supporter, right? Can be sometimes undermining and these sorts of things. If you're like me, it's not only a voice in your head, it's actually sometimes a small committee in there, right? And I'm sure that's familiar to all of you. Now, when we're not what we will call mentally fit and you're facing these challenges, you'll feel often what will occur is that you'll generate mental stress. You'll struggle to focus. There can be anxiety, frustration, and overwhelm. And what we are suggesting and proposing is that at that time, you've really come up against the hidden limits to your own growth. And of course, that will limit your business's growth, right? Now, interestingly, according to the Australian Tax Office, 60% of businesses in Australia fail within the first 3 years. And that percentage has been increasing since the pandemic. Now, what's even more surprising about that is that 50% of those were actually profitable at the time of failure, according to research done by Inline Partners. So, of course, what is it that brought them down? Well, in our experience, more often than not, it's our levels of mental fitness that bring us undone. Hence our focus today. Now, the bad news is, of course, that 80% of people score when tested below the minimum level of mental fitness required to maintain peace of mind, perform at our best under normal everyday challenges of growing their business. The good news? Well, the good news is that with the recent breakthroughs in neuroscience technology, you can now improve your mental fitness significantly with 6 weeks of practice, focused practice. So during this session, you'll get a sneak peek at the hidden limits to your performance and a method to break through those limits and grow your mental fitness. All right, so today, what are we going to be covering? Well, we're going to introduce you to the 10 common ways we self-sabotage. We'll be having a little look at the neuroscience of peak performance. We'll look at how you generate your own stress, and then what you can do to generate peace of mind instead, and a balanced sort of mind, even in the midst of those challenges. And we'll be looking at the 3 gifts technique. And this is one thing you'll have to take away today. And we'll show you how to use that to convert any failure or setback into a gift or opportunity. And then we'll be looking at the mental muscles. And this is the core things we want to be focusing on to the core mental muscles that give top performers their edge. Now, the session, as I mentioned earlier, this works based on positive intelligence, which is created by Shazad Shameem, New York Times bestselling author, Stanford lecturer, and a coach of hundreds of CEOs and executive teams around the world. And his mental fitness program has now been used by over 1 million people across 50 countries. So he's a very experienced person in this realm. I think probably coaching now in the coaching industry now for some 25, 30 years. At the end of the presentation, for those of you who want to take any of this further, we do have a couple of gifts for you, a couple of freebies, and you'll also get a very attractive offer. So stick around for that. Now, a little bit about us. Who are we and how do we get to be sitting here talking to you about such things? Now, for those of you who haven't met us, Sandra and I launched as Essentia Coaching and Consulting a little over 6 years ago. After what I consider certainly to be a highly successful partnership in marriage, a little over 30 years it is in fact now, we decided it was the time was right to launch, to bring our talents together and launch our own coaching and consulting business. Sandra came to this with a wealth of experience. She comes from a small business family, so she grew up in the space. She started and grown 4 businesses of her own, and most recently, she spent 7 years working as a mentor and coach for startup business owners here in Queensland. Left that role about 12 or 18 months ago. And really what drives her is helping business owners perform at their very best for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. And I came to the partnership after about a 25+ year career in organisation development, as a consultant, facilitator, and leadership coach. And over the last decade, I've been really focused on leadership and team development and culture change in small initially predominantly in corporate environments, and more recently in small and medium enterprise. And what drives me is that I really want to help people suffer less and have a whole lot more fun while they're growing their businesses and teams. And that's what's so exciting to me when I came across this mental fitness work, was that whilst life can allow us to grow and develop our resilience, if we've got if we can take a certain sort of mindset to those things, what the positive intelligence work allows us is to deliberately develop our mental fitness and resilience, but with daily practice, right? So that's what's so fabulous about this. All right, mental fitness. First of all, let's set the scene around this. What are we talking about? How many of you have found yourself mentally and emotionally challenged at times in your life? Now imagine what value there could be from being so much more mentally fitter than you are now. And what could you do, and how much more quickly could you overcome those challenges? How much more could you get from them, in the sense that, there's that old saying we have, whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? So mental fitness is something that will allow us to really profit from whatever the challenges are that we're facing in our business day to day. It's not unlike physical fitness. The fitter and stronger you are, the longer and further you can go, the bigger challenges you can take on without getting distressed, overwhelmed, or breaking something, right? So our definition of mental fitness, and Shazad's definition of mental fitness, is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with an open and positive mindset, rather than a stressed and negative one. Yeah. Now, the impact of this will be 3 things. Of course, you'll have increased peace of mind and wellness, regardless of what you're dealing with. You'll have healthier relationships, both at home and at work. and you'll certainly get have an improved performance because you'll be spending more time in an optimal frame of mind or mindset. So now I'm going to hand over to Sandra and for the next segment, and she's going to take us into what are the consequences, and with a story about a client of ours, illustrate the consequences of a low level of mental fitness and what can happen if you develop that mental fitness. Thanks, Sandra.
Great, thanks, Ralph. Hi, everyone. Right, so here we are at sea, and to illustrate this story, I'm going to use the analogy of a boat on the ocean. And I think you'll agree that launching a business is like sailing a boat on the ocean. There's lots of unpredictable elements. And for us, this unpredictability is really the context of the business, and it represents things like the economy that we're sailing in, the competition, things like government regulation, policies. I mean, at the moment, it's all about cost of living crisis. So that's the context that we're launching or navigating our business in at the moment. But for Mary, who was the client, she launched her business some time ago with a great deal of energy, enthusiasm, and a touch of naivety, as we all need when we launch a business. We've got to have a bit of naivety to give us the impetus to take that leap of faith. And her business was a PR agency in the entertainment industry. And in the beginning, just like you, she had a very big dream. She was ambitious. She had some good contacts. And soon enough, she was on her way. She was getting some business in the door. Now, no boat can sail fast or far without having some energy behind it. So what was driving Mary was her passion to support artists and to get their work to large audiences. She wanted to help them build their careers and succeed and really develop the industry she was in. So I wonder what's driving you. What's the energy that you've got that's, the wind in your sails? Just pop something in the chat if you can just think about something that might be driving you, that gets you out of bed in the morning, keeps you moving in the right direction. For me, one of my driving forces in a business I started about 30 years ago was I wanted to start a family. And I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, but I wanted to have a business. I'd always been in business. I needed to have that engagement, that purpose. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start a home-based business and be available and around to have a baby and raise a child. And that's what I did. And it was long before it was fashionable to have a home-based business, of course, as it is today. So let's think about back on the high seas. When we go sailing, we generally have a destination, somewhere where we're wanting to aim and where we're wanting to go. And that's really, really why we start the business. We have a vision or we have a goal and a destination we're trying to reach. Now, Mary's vision was to create financial freedom, have a good work-life balance, build a business that would grow beyond her, and have plenty of fun while she was doing it. Now, I'm thinking probably some of those goals may be similar to yours. I know they're similar to mine. Oh, did I mention she also wanted to retire on that tropical island? So what's your vision of your destination? Where are you heading? Are you really clear? Can you visualize? Can you see it? Do you know where you're going? So important to be clear about your destination. So as her journey continued, as her business grew, she really started to build some very solid growth and some revenue. Her reputation was growing. Her client list was getting bigger. They were bigger clients. She was building her expertise. And as happens with a lot of us, she needed more resources. She needed more staff to do basically provide the PR services. So she then, over time, grew her consultants to a team of around 15 that were located in major cities around the planet. So in all the major cities, she had staff because she had clients in those cities that she had to work with. Now, all of a sudden, or over this period of time, of course, her business became far more complex. She had a lot more relationships to deal with, more drama, more difficulties, more upsets, more challenges. And because Mary was one of those 80% that Ralph mentioned earlier on, she went beyond her her hidden limits. She was in that area where she was floundering and she was at her edge. So her mental fitness wasn't up to the challenge of this more complex business that she was building. This is when she reached out to us. At that time, she was working about 80 hours a week. She was barely breaking even now because, of course, her overheads had grown, and she was not paying herself really a very decent wage. She had a job and not a business. She had a group of workers and not a team. The other thing was that her health was really starting to suffer. She was on some really serious medication for pain and stress management. I mean, she showed me her box of medication one time and it was just startling. And that's how she managed her day, because her day would be very extended because she was working across time zones. She hadn't had a holiday in 4 years and was paying a very high price, both personally in her marriage and professionally. She was burnt out. The wind wasn't blowing. All her reserves of energy that had once filled those sails that had propelled her business forward had just died. And she just couldn't see how she was going to get anywhere, let alone have sight of that island she was heading towards. She was really at risk of sinking that boat with her on it. So when we first sat down with Mary, it was clear that she had, the technical skills, the expertise, the knowledge, the reputation, and the resources to build a highly successful business in her industry. However, over time, some investigation, it was clear that she didn't have the 3 core mental muscles necessary to maintain peace of mind, healthy relationships, and optimal performance while facing these internal and external challenges that we all face when growing a business. It's inevitable that we're going to have these challenges, and it's really how you deal with those challenges that will determine, how quickly you can get to your destination. She was, in fact, sabotaging herself over and over again. If she was ever going to reach that island, she needed to be able to really navigate the complexities of building a team of partners that could help her grow her business. She just couldn't do it on her own the way she had set it up. She needed to be able to share the responsibility and ultimately that could provide her with support and the freedom she was looking for. And she wasn't going to be able to do that without first building her mental fitness. So in this elegant and simple framework created by Shazad called Positive Intelligence, as Ralph mentioned, there's 10 ways in which we self-sabotage. He calls them our saboteurs. 1's a master saboteur and 9 are the accomplice saboteurs. So let's meet them. Let's meet the judge, the master saboteur, the one that we inevitably all have on some level. It's that small voice in our head that develops over time from a very early age. And sometimes it's just not that easy to admit to. But if you, in those quiet moments, you just can hear this chatter going on in your mind. It's usually, it's emotionally negative, an emotionally negative voice that can be critical, can be damning, blaming, and persistent. Not the emotionally neutral and useful capacity that we need when making decisions in life and in business. That's not the judge we're talking about. We call that discernment. That's when we're very emotionally balanced. We look at all the facts of the matter. We make a calm, clear-headed decision that needs to be made. We're calling that discernment. This is the negative energy, the negative chatter that can derail you. So I realised some time ago, for me, my judge was very quietly chattering away in the background, saying things to me about my sense of worth. Was I really worthwhile? Did I really deserve this success? Whereas for Ralph,
the seed.
On the other hand, he could be heard screaming at times at himself about how hopeless he was whenever things weren't going to his plans. So we all have different judges and they show up differently, but we all have them. That's the point. So there are 3 areas in life where the judge shows up. The first one is the judge of self. The one, that chatter that says things like, I can't do this. I'm too old. Oh, I'm too young. I'm too stupid. Oh, God, I'm so inexperienced. Who am I to think I could succeed? All this leads to self-doubt. It can lead to second-guessing yourself. Imposter syndrome, I know that one very well, where you really start to doubt your own capabilities. who am I to be here? And basically it leads to inaction. If this is going on for you, it's going to slow you down. It's going to make you pause. It's going to make you inactive. Now for Mary, she was judging herself as less important than others. So she was saying, oh, look, I'm not as important as everybody else, my clients, my staff, everyone else takes priority. Now this led her to over-servicing her clients, saying yes when she should be saying no, and resulted in her ignoring her own health and personal relationships. And this was burnout, just ignoring her own needs at the expense of others' needs. So what's the voice of your judge saying about you? I mean, what's that little voice in your head that is just
And
quietly or maybe sometimes loudly on your shoulder talking to you in a negative energy? Now, the other way a judge turns up is judging of others. Now, this could be staff, suppliers, customers, other stakeholders, having critical and negative thoughts about them, often with little hard evidence or support to support these opinions. They're unreliable, they're selfish, they're lazy, they're demanding, they're aggressive. And what this does, of course, will lead to conflict. All these judgments of others are going to cause that conflict. Now, for Mary, for her, it was, I can't trust others to deliver. People are unreliable. You just can't get good staff these days. I'm better off just doing it myself. So by looking after her people through this lens of the judge, she was letting her team down. She wasn't leading them at all, hence all the drama. I'm wondering what your judge of others might be saying about all of them out there. What's your judge making up about others out there in the world? And the third way the judge shows up is the judge of circumstances. That's when you're looking outside of yourself and making negative judgments based on hunches or limited information or fear, or feelings and fear often. There's too much competition. There's no good staff available. Change is happening too rapidly. I can't keep up. It's all happening out there. I've got no influence or agency over what's happening in the world or around me. I'm basically helpless. So not a great place to be. Now for Mary, it was judging that the big ticket projects were not open to her small business. So those very big projects, she didn't go after at all. She didn't even make any attempt to go after them because she figured, even though with all her experience, all her years, all her contacts, she just made the decision in her own mind, that door was closed to her. She never tested it. So again, what are you judging about the world out there, the circumstances that may be limiting your success in life and in business? So after sorting out a few of the problems with the business, with Mary, so some of the things around, a few leaks in her boat, we could say, things like systems and processes, service delivery standards, pricing. Her and her newly formed partnership team embarked on a 6-week mental fitness program with us. Mary and her partners were able to reduce the impact of their self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviours and respond to stressful events in a more positive and creative way. Mary was able to turn her business and her life around, with her team having this common understanding about what was getting in the way, what these saboteurs were doing, and then how to shift away from that to be more creative rather than reactive under pressure. So today, Mary has a partnership team of 4 women, plus many staff, as I said, around the globe, is feeling well supported with a plan for the partners to take over in her retirement in 5 years. Revenue's tripled and she's paying herself well, and recently even took a 2-week holiday, the longest time she's had out of the drama in over 20 years. Her health has improved, as has her marriage. Now, Mary's story is pretty dire. It's, albeit one with a happy ending. Your situation may or may not be anything like this, but like Mary, with greater mental strength, you'll be able to turn challenges into an opportunity to grow your business and flourish, rather end up adrift. Allowing your judge and its 9 accomplices, so the 9 accomplices, to dominate your mind is like trying to sail a boat while dragging your anchors. As I'm sure you'll agree, this is highly stressful on everybody and everything. A lot of unnecessary stress when you're dragging this load. So I'm going to hand back to Ralph, and he's going to take us through how we're going to develop our mental fitness.
Thank you, Sandra. Very, very good. Yeah, what a journey Mary had. And of course, you know, as Sandra said, you know, all of us face these challenges one way or another. But what was, you know, really, you know, for me, it was pretty miraculous the way things turned around once she shifted out of the saboteur mind into what we're going to find out more about soon, which is the sage powers. Now, okay, so this just a bit of background for the whole program. This is a very strongly research-backed piece of work that Shazad's put together. So it's based on breakthrough research of Shazad's and a synthesis of recent things such as positive psychology, performance science, and the neuroscience that and also cognitive behavioral psychology. So Shazad spent a lot of time distilling these things and coming up with, to me, what's one of the most elegant and simple models or stories about our minds. And this is what's so wonderful about it. It's so accessible. We've got these characters called the saboteurs, and the judge and its 9 accomplices. And so, yeah, a really fabulous sort of synthesis of a lot of really great research. So the model describes 3 core mental muscles, as Sandra mentioned earlier, that when developed will allow you to break through, move beyond those deeply encoded old habit patterns of mind, called the saboteur and the sage powers, as I said. So all of you, anyone here Star Wars fans or ever, you know, watch Star Wars, right? So you can think of this as developing the mental muscles needed to shift from being constantly hijacked by Darth Vader to being able to spend a whole lot more time living in your Jedi mind, right? And as they say, may the Force be with you. So that's positive intelligence, a sort of distillation of all of these different areas of science, which is wonderful. Now, the research, what it really came down to was these 3 core mental muscles. So what Shazad's been able to do is bring this down to 3 simple areas that we need to strengthen and grow in order to spend more time in our Jedi minds, right? And so these are at the root of mental fitness. The first one is what is called the saboteur interceptor. Of course, if you know, if you're about to have a saboteur hijacking, well, you'd need to intercept that, and that's why we start with the saboteur interceptor muscle. Then the second thing we need to develop is we call self-command. That's that ability to pause and then respond. And that's an area of the brain, literally, that quiet space is an area of the brain that we can grow. And then the last one is the sage powers. Now, Sandra mentioned earlier, there are actually 10 saboteurs. You've met the judge. Well, here are its accomplices. So what you've got, what we have is these 9 characters: the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless. Then we have stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, and then avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. All different aspects of mind. And of course, typically people have 2 or 3 of these. When we do surveys and assessments, there'll be 2 or 3 of these that are strong. And what we have also noticed is, and this was sort of verified in a session I was running yesterday again, is that there are some typical gender ways these show up with different genders, right? So males tend to have more the controller, hyper rational. Females we're seeing with more the pleaser avoider styles, right? And that, of course, why? Well, because of the cultural historical narrative that we've grown up in. We've been conditioned by these things. Right? Now, these saboteurs, of course, that we develop these internal saboteurs early in our life, and as we're adapting to the context we're in, we say this period of the formative years, about the first 15 years. So by the time we're adults, these saboteurs, they're not really needed, because what are they for? Well, they're for our emotional survival. They were developed because of our needs for approval, control, and connection, fundamental basic human needs. And these defensive postures evolve in response to, well, how do I get approval? How do I get control? How do I get connection with the people the context I'm in? Now, of course, later on, when you're running your own business, you're living your adult life, well, you want to be ideally, you're more self-authored than that. You're not dependent on how other people see you. But of course, these patterns are deep in our brains. The neural pathways are well trodden. And so that's why and that becomes part of what we call our autopilot. So these ways of reacting and responding happen automatically, particularly when we're under stress. So they're a universal phenomenon, and they're certainly the barriers to our growth, personal growth and our business growth. Now let me introduce you to the positive habits of mind that can be accessed and strengthened, just like any physical muscle can be. These are the sage powers, or if you like, of the Jedi mind. Now they are empathy, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. So the three muscles to get access and to build and grow to where we can remain in those sage powers longer and longer, we must start with the interceptor, the saboteur interceptor. Now, let me ask you this question. Is pain good for you? Put a thumbs up in the screen if you think, yes, pain is good for you or can be good for you. Can be good for you. Yeah? Well, we say, yes, it can be, but only for a short time. You don't want to be leaving your hand on that hot plate for any longer than it takes to realize that that's too hot, right? So the pain, that stimulus, yes, that's useful, but only for 1 second as an alert signal. So when we're getting stress in our mind, then should we keep our, should we stay in it? No, we should move out of it as quickly as possible, because staying in negative emotion hurts our ability to see clearly and to access these sage powers of empathy, and this curiosity, creativity, and have that laser-focused mind, that clear-headed thinking, where we can move into clear action. So the negative emotional stress equals a saboteur hijacking. The second muscle is self-command. Now, I'm sure we've all had the experience of after reacting or saying something like, oh no, why did I say that? Has anyone had that experience? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Oh, what was I thinking? And of course, well, that's the problem, isn't it? You weren't thinking. Now, for some people, it can be, and this is those with more the avoider or the pleaser sort of saboteur. you might leave a situation and you may have found yourself saying, oh, why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I say something? Has anyone ever had that experience? I wish I'd said, yeah. So when you're having that after the fact realization, you know you were in a saboteur hijacking in the moment, right? And your saboteur interceptor didn't act. So the saboteur interceptor is operating and we get our hand off the stove, we can now build this self-command muscle so that we can create a pause between stimulus and response. And this self-command, as it's called in this, is there's literally an area of the brain that when we do the practices will grow. And that means that this is more easily accessible and you can sit in it for longer. To build this muscle, we use attention regulation, what are called attention regulation practices. And in PQ, we call those PQ reps, right? Which I'll introduce you to shortly. Now, these practices lead to increased activity in the dorsal regions of the brain associated with, the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. And these are regions associated with the management of our attention. And studies have shown that when we do these practices regularly, we can permanently rewire the brain and form new neural pathways that remain active even when we're no longer focusing on doing the practices. This is similar to when, if we were to go to the gymnasium and do weights, we would build the strength of our muscles, physical muscles. Well, that strength would remain with us after we leave the gym, right? So this is also possible with building regions of the brain. One of the areas of neuroscience, earliest things in neuroscience, of course, that I'm sure you've all heard about is neuroplasticity. And that's what this is grounded in. We can grow new neurons and new neural pathways. Okay, so as I said, 10-second PQ reps. This is what another little takeaway for you today. But I'm going to invite you right now to join me in a short attention practice or a PQ rep practice, right? Now you can use this, take this away today and use it at any point of time in the day to center yourself, right? If you notice a little possible saboteur hijacking, so you're intercepting it. For example, let's say, these days, sometimes, when the phone rings and we look at it, sometimes, and you could see, oh, there's that difficult customer. Or there's that person I don't actually particularly want to talk to right at this minute. And there'll be a little stress response, right? So if that occurs later today, you can just do these PQ reps, center yourself, and then answer the phone. All right? A bit like Grandma said, count to 10, same sort of idea, right? So now I'm going to invite you into this little practice to give you an experience of this. So if you'd like to, you can turn your cameras off or not, up to you. And now I just invite you to become aware of the contact of your body with the chair that you're sitting in. Feel the sensations of your body against the chair that you're sitting in. And you can allow your eyes to close. And take a slightly deeper inhale. And let it out with a gentle sigh. Deep exhale. And as you notice your breath returning to its own gentle rhythm, bring the thumb and forefinger on one of your hands together. And now begin to rub them together with enough attention that you can feel the ridges on each fingertip. And as you're doing that, what do you notice? Has it gone quiet inside your mind? What's missing? Oh, yes, that continual stream of chatter. Imagine picking up that phone now. How would you respond? And take a deep breath and come back to the room. Very good. And if you want to, what did you notice? You want to bring yourself off mute? Anyone care to comment? What did you notice? Just from that small, short, attention focusing practice. Saul?
I noticed actually for the first time I was funny as I was rubbing my fingers, I noticed that I was able to move the skin around.
Yeah.
So just like a little tiny thing that I've probably never thought of before, but I just noticed that. And then as soon as you sort of said, the chatter wasn't there, the chatter came back.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, well, there you go. Like,
there you go. Excellent.
It was
Thanks,
just like
Saul.
a random range of different things.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Saul. Anyone else got a quick comment? No? Okay, great. All right. So that's the 10-second PQ rep. And as I said, you can do that at any time. And I think you'll find that if you anticipate a hijacking, you do that little practice, you will center and calm yourself. And as you would know, the hijacking, of course, involves the whole fight-flight response, right? There's a chemical cocktail flooding our bodies. So it's not just the thinking, it's also the chemistry. When we do these things like the PQ rep, and there are many other versions, of course, but that's the simplest one because you can do it under the desk at a meeting. Rubbing those fingers together shifts the chemical cocktail flooding in your nervous system and your body, right? And that's what then shifts the state of mind. And with practice and practice, that becomes the normal pathway rather than the unusual one. All right, the third muscle we want to build is the sage powers. Now, the sage, what's called the sage powers, they live in a particular part of the brain associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, big picture thinking. And in my experience, most adults have had, many adults anyway, have had some experience of this. They've been triggered into this place by circumstances. Yeah. If any of you have ever been working on something, particularly something you love and enjoy and you're good at, and you've lost time, how many of you have ever had that experience? Time just flew by. You thought it was 5 minutes, but it was actually an hour and a half had passed because you were so focused. And this is an experience of dropping into this region of the brain that we call the sage powers. Other times it can come for people for me personally, sitting in nature, sitting in a really remote environment, the sun's going down, I just get deeply connected, right? And that's a real state of a beautiful state of mind. Now, what the PQ reps offer and building these three muscles is that you can deliberately and consciously access that state, right? That's the power of building these three muscles. Now, when we're in the Sage Powers, of course, then we can operate from the Sage perspective. And the Sage perspective is every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. Now, that's not the truth, nor is it a lie. It's a perspective we can choose to take, right? And with that comes the three gifts technique. And there are three questions we can use for three gifts. So whenever we're facing any sort of failure or setback, we can convert those into gifts and opportunities by asking any one of these three questions. What can I learn? How can this make me stronger? And what might this inspire me to do? Right? So you can ask all three, or you might get answers to all three. Fabulous. You may only get answers to one. But if we've got the Sage perspective that everything can be turned into a gift and opportunity, we ask these three questions, then we will discover and reflect. We will discover something in response to that. So this all builds up to what this simple PQ operating system. And what's that? Well, if you're feeling negative emotions, stop. You're in a saboteur. You're in a saboteur hijacking. Do some PQ reps to quiet that saboteur energy or and the chemical cocktail associated with it. And with the PQ reps, you'll activate the Sage Powers and access the shift out of that aspect of the nervous system, the fight-flight response. Then you can assume the Sage perspective, where every problem can be converted into a gift or opportunity. So we're obviously not saying here that your challenges will go away, are we? No, of course they won't. But they'll make you stronger with the Sage perspective. And then you can generate the gift by using the Sage Powers: empathy, curiosity, creativity, calm, clear-headed action, right? So often people ask the question, though, is it really possible to shift from saboteur to Sage response, even in tough challenges? Well, the answer is yes, it is, but the speed and depth of that shift will depend on the mental muscle strength you have developed, right? Okay. Over to you, Sandra, to just take us home.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. Okay, so of course, what we've introduced you to today is insight. 20% for change to happen, we need to have insight, but that's only 20% of the equation. We need to have a lasting positive change. We need to have 80% mental muscle. So do the work to build that mental strength. And what we have here to talk through is the mental fitness program. Ralph, if you want to click the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
This is an app-based program that we deliver, and it's an 8-week program. It's basically a 1-hour video a week with Shazad, which you watch over the weekend at your leisure, so at a time that suits you, followed by the practices, which is building those mental muscles, building those new neural pathways, which require 15 minutes a day of practice using PQ apps, using PQ reps through the app. Those activities come through the app on your phone, 4 days, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's 5 activities in that day for about 2 minutes each. So you're looking at about 15 minutes a day to really start to strengthen those mental muscles. Also, we offer a weekly live facilitated group meeting we call PQ pod meetings, where a maximum of 5 people that are coming through the program together will meet live with either Ralph or myself. And it's an opportunity to discuss questions, issues, what's coming up, learn together and kept accountable and stay on track. Because it's like anything, you know, you join the gym, say, to get fit. You start with a lot of enthusiasm, and over time that can wane. It's a lot easier if you join the gym with a friend and they help you stay accountable to your goals. It's the same thing. We come together to keep each other accountable and moving forward through the activities. We also offer 2 individual coaching sessions in that period, so we can work with you on individual issues that you might be facing, or go a bit more, go into some greater depth around some aspects of the PQ program, the mental fitness training. And most importantly, you get access to this app for a full year. So all the support, the modules, the exercises are available to you in your pocket for 12 months. So consistency will strengthen those mental muscles. So as you build consistency and build habits of mind, you're going to find you're going to get compounding results through your own business and in your own personal life. Clicking on it, Ralph. Okay, so this is because the program's been run, I think Ralph was saying, with in over 50
A
countries
million.
with 1 million people. There's a lot of data about what's been gained from going through this program, the Foundation's PQ program. And you can see here some pretty significant statistics, how performance is boosted, mental energy goes up, improved ability to develop others, better teamwork, all important stuff for business. Significantly improves through the program. On a personal level, your well-being is better, you're managing stress better, increased happiness and improved confidence. And then finally, strengthening relationships. So better relationships, improved relationships, better at conflict management. Again, all important qualities when you're navigating business. Next slide.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so our gifts for you. If you'd like to get your phone out and click on that link, the QR code, that will take you to the free saboteur assessment. So for those of you that haven't done it, it takes about 5 minutes, and what it will give you is a report that ranks your saboteurs from strongest to weakest. So then you're going to get some insight into what your habitual negative habits are that you've cultivated over many years, and you're going to name them. So that's insight, and very important to have that first step. So please take the assessment and you'll gain some great information. And it's always so surprisingly accurate. People are never really surprised when they read their report.
And if I'll just add, Sandra, that then immediately strengthens your saboteur interceptor muscle because of the self-awareness, the ability to identify those voices. Yep. What else? That one. So that's the assessment. Yeah. And
so now we have another gift, which is basically a 45-minute debrief with either Ralph or myself, where we can go through your results and do some coaching on any particular issues you might be facing. So again, just scan one of those codes. So I'm on the left, meet with Sandra, or meet with Ralph. Either one's fine. And we can you can book yourself into our calendars, and we'd be delighted to talk further with you about the PQ results and any issues you might be having at the moment that we could help you with. And then finally, the next program, the Foundations program, the next start date is the 25th of May. That's the weekend where you watch the video in your own time, and then we start the exercises through the week, the group meetings, etc. So that's due to start at the end of the month on the 25th of May. Normally the cost is $1,650 per person. Because you're here today, we're going to have a discount of $220, which brings it back to $1,430. So for those that like to take quick action, are really keen, are getting a very strong yes, this is me, this is what I need, this is really what I need to move forward, simply just scan that code and we'll be in touch with you to take it to the next step. So hope you can join us there if you're up for it at this stage. And finally, any questions that you might have, our email address is there if you want to email anything to us, but certainly as we've got the opportunity.
any questions now? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got you here. Just take yourself off mute and let's have a conversation if you've got anything you want to ask or not.
I didn't have a. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to say I did 6 months of coaching last year with Sandra, and we started off doing this program. I did it with my wife actually, and yeah, it definitely brought us closer together. And she's a manager as well, so it helped both of us professionally.
Wow.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Josh.
Mm.
So I don't have a question, but just wanted to say, yeah, thank you for the webinar, yeah, I mean, for like an hour, which isn't, I guess, like a terribly long amount of time, it was really good. So thank you.
Thanks, Saul. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Saul. Yeah. Any
Okay.
feedback would be welcome. Any areas for improvement, always welcome. All right, well, that's right on 10 a.m. I'm really excited by that because one of my saboteurs, which likes to talk a lot, usually runs over time on everything. But there you go. So thank you very much for your time and attention. And we look forward to speaking to you all again.